It's TK Friday, and today on The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, I'll be doing another full edit. I'm entitling this one, Rocky Peaks. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. It's TK Friday again, and it's another full edit. I'm entitling this one, Rocky Peaks. Today's image comes to us from Joan Abella. Thank you, Joan, for the use of your image today. And as always, you can download the image as well as the PDF notes. And you'll find Dropbox links for the image and the PDF notes in the description below this video. You got to click on more to open up that description or you'll never see them. And also, if you have an image you would like me to edit on a TK Friday, if you scroll further down in the description, you'll find a Contact Me. Click on that link, contact me, and we can discuss doing one of your images on a TK Friday. I'd also like to thank every one of you who have already sent me images in for TK Fridays. And by the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, you can save 15% off the TK9 plugin for Photoshop along with training videos. Use my promo code DK15. That gets you 15% off of everything. Not only are you saving money, but you're supporting the joy of editing with Dave Kelly when you use that promo code DK15. So thank you all for using my promo code. I really appreciate it. And now let's dive into this full edit. Now, as always, I always start out here in Lightroom, and in the basic panel, I used a linear profile. I like a linear profile. It gives me a nice flat image to start with. And then I basically click auto. And then if I'm clipping whites and blacks, I go ahead and adjust my white and black point just to stop clipping. And then also, as far as detail, I didn't use any sharpening or noise reduction, just a little bit of color noise reduction. And under lens corrections, I have remove chromatic aberrations checked on, enable profile corrections checked on, but that is basically it. I also did a crop in this image, so let me click on this crop button, and you can see I did a pretty aggressive crop here. I just felt it needed it, so that was my crop. And at this point, what I would do is right click on the image, go to edit in Photoshop 2024, but I'm already there. And here we are in Photoshop. Now, the first thing I like to do is add balance and contrast to the image. And I work on the foreground separately from the sky whenever I have a landscape like this with a sky in foreground. So we'll be doing that first. But I also want to mention, when I brought the image into Photoshop, I noticed I did have a little bit of noise because this was ISO 320. So I went ahead and ran the image into Topaz Photo AI, gave it a little bit of sharpening, not much, just a little bit, and some noise reduction. So when you get your copy of this image, when you download it, it will have the noise removed and a slight amount of sharpening on it. Now, the first thing I like to do is set myself up for success. And what I mean by that is to make any appropriate masks for this image and save them as channels. Now, in this image, I know I'll be working on the foreground and I know I'll be working on the sky separately. So what I'll do is save out a foreground channel and a sky channel. And it's really simple with TK9. All you need to do is in either your combo panel or your CX panel. Now, my combo panel has all my buttons here, as you can see, and my CX panel, I'm using it for TK actions. But if I close my actions by clicking on this X, you can see it has all the same buttons as the combo panel. However, the layout for the CX panel is different than the combo panel, but the buttons are all the same and they're all there. If you have a larger monitor, I recommend keeping both panels open, combo and CX. Maybe use one of the panels for actions and one for just your buttons. And if you come up to the hamburger menus in either the combo or CX, you can click right here. And you see right here where it says auto close TK actions, mine's unchecked. If you check this on, every time you run an action, the action panel will close. But if you uncheck it like I have mine, it'll stay open. In other words, if I click my TK actions and run an action, this panel will not close. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, now it's time to save out a sky and a foreground channel, and it's really simple. All you have to do, hold your Command or Control key down, depending if you're on a Mac or a PC. Command, Mac, Control, PC. Hold that Command or Control down, click on the sky button. It will save you out a sky channel. You see right there? And then hold the Command or Control key down again and double click sky, and now you'll save out a foreground channel. The next step is to come up to the multi-mask panel, click on the luminosity mask button, and what I want here is a midtones 3, so we'll click this button right here. We can see a midtones 3 mask here, and I'm only using this, and I say this every week, just to protect the shadows and highlights from clipping, meaning they'll lose detail if they clip, and I don't want that happening, so I use this for protection. And then I output it to a color grading tool because I use that to make my adjustments. So let's click on the color grading button right here, and you'll notice I have the color grading layer here with that midtones 3 mask on it. Now I need one for the sky as well as the foreground, so if we come to the combo or CX panel and click this button, we can duplicate that layer, and now we can come back to the first layer. Now this is a color grading tool, which is basically a curves adjustment, but it lets us adjust shadows, midtones, and highlights, those luminosity ranges, as well as color grade very easily. The curves adjustment can be hard to wrap your head around, but this color grading tool makes it really easy to use. I want to take a minute and point out you can rename these color grading layers, and to do that, I'm just going to double click here and see where it says color grading. I'm going to put my cursor right there and come up and highlight over color grading, and I'll call this FG Balance and Contrast. Now the important thing here is you can rename these color grading layers, but you need to keep TK in parentheses on there. TK can have caps or no caps, but it must be in parentheses or the color grading tool won't work. That's very important. I went ahead and renamed the top layer to Sky Balance and Contrast with TK in parentheses not being capitalized, just to show you that it works with caps or no caps. But again, don't forget, make sure TK is in parentheses. All right, now the next step is to go to the trusty layer mask calculator. You'll find it on the combo or CX panel, this button right here. Now here's a little tip for you. If you hold your command or control key down and click this, you will keep the calculator open because I'll be using it twice here and I don't want to have to keep opening it up. And then if you want to close it, just click the X. So the first thing I want to do is click on foreground, and I want to intersect that foreground into this mids 3 mask. So click the X for intersect, and now you'll notice there's no sky, and now we have the foreground. The other thing I could have done was clicked on sky and clicked minus and subtracted out the sky. So there's different ways of doing this. I'm working on the foreground, so let me click the midtone button. And I'm going to open up those midtones. I'll drag this to the right. You don't see a change until you release the click of your mouse. And I want to lighten this up a good bit over to like right there, plus 54. But I also want to color grade this. And to color grade, all you do is you see the cursor there. You can click and color grade that anywhere you want. If I want to make it in the reds, you see that. I can make it more saturated by clicking up this way, less this way. I want mine to be a little bit on the warm side, so I'll be clicking right around here, and I think somewhere around there is good. But the other thing you can do, on my notes, you can see a hex decimal number, and if I click right here and type in that number, I can get the exact color grade I got for my notes, which is what I'm going to do. And that is A39477. And then to accept that, you have to click this button right here. And there's the color grade right for my notes. And then, by the way, if I hold my Option or Alt key down and hover over this button right here, we can see that this button opens an interface for saving the current color grading settings or for loading the settings of a previously saved color grade. I'm going to click the X to get rid of the notes. So that's important. You can, if you have a favorite color grade that you use all the time, you can go ahead and save those out and use them whenever you need to. And now that I have my midtones, I want to work on my shadows, so we'll click on the shadow button. And what I'll do is drag this shadow slider to the left just to darken up those shadows to right there, -12. Now, I'm not going to mess with the highlights here, but let me go ahead and shut this layer off. So here is before, and now I'll turn this layer back on, and here is the after, so I like that. Next, we're going to go and work on the sky. So let's click on the sky layer, and now we're going to come back to the layer mask calculator, and this time I'll leave this on foreground and click minus to subtract the foreground, or I could click on sky and click intersect to intersect it. But let's do it this way. Foreground is selected, let's click minus. And now you see I just have the sky selected with that mids 3 mask in it. While I'm at it, I'll just close the layer mask calculator by clicking this X. Now I'm on the sky balance and contrast layer. So let's start out with midtones. So let's click on the midtone button, and I want to darken up those midtones to right here, a -28. Now let's click on the highlight button, and I have some clouds up here, so let's lighten those up. And we'll drag this to the right, and we'll take it over to right there, +35. So let's shut this layer off. Here's before, and here is after, and I like it. We're off to a good start. Now, at this stage of the edit, I study the image, and if there's any problems, I'm looking for them. And the problem I'm seeing first is this blue sky. It looks a little too saturated, so I want to take care of that first. Now, I don't need this color grading tool anymore, so I'm going to click the X here. Nothing will change in the color grading layers. And what I want to do is isolate this blue color, so a color mask is great for that. So let's click this button here. And what I want to do is select a color, and right here is good. Click OK. And now we're going to make a mask, and you can see that mask right there. And now I need to fine tune it, so I can lighten it up by taking this slider right here and dragging it over to the right, and see how that area lightens up to maybe somewhere right about there. We're also getting a bunch of area down in here that will get an adjustment, which I don't want, but I'll show you how I'll take care of that, so just keep watching here. And then I want to output this to a hue saturation adjustment layer because I'm working with color, so let's click this button. And now I can take care of this foreground by going to my layer mask calculator, so I'll click this button on my combo panel. I'll click foreground, and I will click subtract. And I'll take out that foreground. And now if you click this double arrow right here, you can see there's my mask. See, my foreground is dropped out. Pretty cool. And click the same button again, and now we can see the image. And now that I've isolated this blue, I can take my saturation. I'm just leaving this on master because we're only targeting blue. And I'm going to take this over to the left to right there, -30. So now let me shut this layer off. There's before, and there is after. Now, I do have a bit of a blue color cast on these clouds up here, which I don't like, and I'll take care of that later. So stay tuned, that's coming up. And now as I study the image, I'm still looking at color, and I'm noticing the yellows down here in these grasses. I'd like to bring that saturation up a little bit, so we can use another color mask. So let's click on the color mask button, and you'll notice a color picker comes up, and what we need to do is pick a color. And you'll notice I have an eyedropper, so I'm going to come down here and pick one of these yellow colors and click OK. And now we're going to see a mask. And now let's do some fine tuning here. So what I want to do is see this slider right here. If I move this to the right, I'll drop out some of the redder tones. So what I'll do is start to drag this to the right, and you'll notice the mask starts to tighten up. And I think that's good right there. And then let's give it a little more brightness. This is a brightness slider, so we'll start to drag this to the right just to lighten up all those yellowish tones. And I think maybe right about here should be good. And now we're going to output this to a hue saturation adjustment layer because we're working on color. And if we look at the mask by clicking the double arrow button, I don't have to worry about the sky because there's no yellow tones up there in the sky. So we're good. Click the double arrow again. And now we're back to the image. And now we can adjust the hue saturation. And again, I'm on master because I've already selected every yellow tone in this image. So when I adjust this slider to the right, I'll get aggressive here so you can really see what's happening. But you can see we're getting saturation increases on the rocks up in here and down here. Now that's way too much, but I just want you to know that we are getting those saturation changes on all of those different areas so you can see what it's targeting. But that's too much. I want to drag this back to right here, +31. So let me shut this layer off by clicking this eye. Here is before, and here is after. And don't forget, you have a hue adjustment as well as a lightness adjustment. They can be adjusted if needed. I don't need it here, but I will need those on my next adjustment. Now that I've worked on the yellows, I'm looking at the greens. And so what I want to do is get another color mask. So click on the color mask button. And I want to sample a green color, say right about here, I think should be good. And we'll click OK. And we can see how that's targeting, but I need to tighten that up. So this top slider, I'll drop yellows out if I start to move this in towards green, towards this slider. So let me drag this to the right and see those yellows drop out. And I think I'm going to try right about there. And now let's lighten that up by dragging the brightness slider up to somewhere right about there. And I think I'm targeting those green tones really well. And now let's click the Hue Saturation Adjustment button, and that'll output this mask to a Hue Saturation Adjustment layer. And now I can take the saturation and watch when I drag this to the right, I'm on master. See how it's just targeting the green tones? And so I'm going to drag this over. I don't want to go too crazy, but I think like right here at 35. And then I want to shift them a little more on the green side. So I'll take this hue slider and drag it to the right. And just to like 3 right there. And maybe a little bit of lightness. I'm going to take the lightness slider, drag it to the right. See how it lightens those greens? And I think right there, +5. So +3, 35, and 5. But you know what? I think I still need a little bit more saturation. So let me drag this to the right over to right there, +46. Now let me shut this layer off. Here is before. We're just targeting the greens. You see that? And here is after. Now, if I shut both of these layers off, that will be the yellow and the green. And now let's turn them both back on. You can see the difference, and I really like that. And now as I study the image, I'm looking at the foreground. I'd like to pop a little bit of detail out and maybe pop some color out. And can you guess which TK action I would like to try for that? If you're thinking soft pop, you are correct. So let's click on the soft pop action and see what we get. And I do like the pop I'm getting. It's too strong right now, and I don't like it up in the sky. So what we can do is click on our layer mask calculator, click on sky, and click subtract to subtract out the sky. That's better, but I think it's still too strong. I can pull back on the layer opacity, and I'll just pull this opacity back. And I'm thinking like right about here at 71. Okay, so let me shut this layer off by clicking this eye. Here's before soft pop, and here's after. So it brings out some nice detail, and it brings out some nice color, and I like it. And at this point in the edit, I'm thinking some dodging and burning, but I'm going to do this a simplified way. We'll start out with dodging. I'll start by clicking on the Curves Adjustment button on the Multi-Mask panel. That gives me a Curves Adjustment layer. And now I'll go straight to a layer mask calculator, click on sky, and click the subtract button because I don't want to dodge the sky, only the foreground. And now I'm going to click on edit blend if and decide on a lights value I want to dodge. And that's going to be lights 3. So let's click on lights 3. And now if I click on this magenta double arrow, we can see the areas that will be affected, right? Those areas right there. Click the double arrow button again, and now all we need to do is click on the screen button to lighten all those areas, and instantly they're dodged. You see that? But that's too strong, so let's take our opacity. I like to take it the whole way off and then just build it up slowly. And I think maybe right about here, 45. So let me shut this off. Here's before dodging, and here's after. And again, it's subtle, but it's just a little bit of a dodge, and I like it. And then if you want to, you could come back, and you may want to tighten this up. You could click on 4. You see how it tightens that up? I'm only targeting lights 4, or if I want to open it up more, I could go to like lights 2 and see it gets a lot more of the areas, but I do like lights 3. But if you look at this magenta right here, this lets us see these are the areas we're targeting. So if I take this slider here, the shadow slider, and drag it to the left, see I'm encompassing more of those areas. So you can fine tune with these sliders as well. But in my case, I do like lights 3, so I'm going to click on the lights 3 button. Don't forget, you have these sliders too. There's so much power in blend if. And now I want to burn the foreground shadows, so we're going to click the X to get out of blend if nothing changes on this layer. I'm going to do that same thing and click this button to get a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to click edit blend if again, and I'm going to click on this double arrow magenta button. And now my whole image goes magenta, but check it out. I'm targeting darks, right? I want to burn. So let me click on darks 1. Here's darks 1. Those are all the darks 1 areas. Let's click on darks 2. So we can narrow this down and we can use this magenta overlay to help us. Here's darks 3. I'm getting closer. Here's darks 4. Notice nothing in the sky now. All these magenta tones will get the adjustment, but let's go to darks 5. Let me click on darks 5. And look, I'll be targeting all these areas. And I think I like that. And that is the range of the shadows that will be getting the adjustment right there. And don't forget, I can pull this slider to the right and grab more of those areas, or pull it to the left and get less. And I can really fine tune that to precision. You see that? But I'm using Darks 5 and I like that right there. Now let's shut off the magenta overlay by clicking this double arrow button. And now all we need to do is use a blend mode here. And which blend mode darkens? Well, the one I like to use is multiply. So we'll click the multiply button, and just like that, I've burned all those shadow areas. But that's too strong. So again, we're going to come to the layer opacity. We're going to pull this the whole way off. And let's just build it up slowly and stop where we think we like it. And I think I like it like right here at 40%. So let me shut this off. Here's before the burning and here is after. But that's a really quick way of burning shadows as well as highlights, which I showed you in the step before this burning step. And don't forget, you can always come back to this layer anytime you want. If your blend diff isn't open, click on the Edit Blend Diff button. And if you wanted to broaden out this adjustment, we could take this top slider and move it to the right. You see that? And encompass a little bit more. Or take it to the left and take some out. Or again, we could click on the buttons. I was on Darks 5. But if I just wanted a little bit more range there, I can move this to the right a little bit more to maybe right there. And now let me shut this off. There's before and there's after. So there's tons of flexibility here, and you could come back and readjust. So I love Edit Blend Diff. And if you love Edit Blend Diff, let me know in the comments section below. And also don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it when you do that. But before I leave Edit Blend Diff, there's one thing I forgot to show you. There's zones here, like zone 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can click on, say, like zone 1 and see how that affects the image. You could try zone 2. You see? Zone 3, and so on, 4 and 5. All right. But again, I'm going to go back to 5 and just give it a little bit more range here, you know, taking it more towards like a Darks 4. So again, here is my before and here is my after. And now it's time to address this little blue color cast in these clouds. You probably thought I forgot about that, but I did not. Now, to take care of this, I did something a little different, and let's click the X to close down the Edit Blend Diff panel. Nothing changes here. And let's click on the Zone Mask button and select a tone like right here, and we'll click OK. And that's what our mask looks like. Now, I do want to tighten up this mask by taking this slider here and dragging it into the left to somewhere like right about here. And that targets these tones. I think we're good. Yeah, right there. And now we'll take this brightness slider and we'll drag it to the right over to say right about here, I think is good. Now we're selecting the foreground as well. I only want to work on these clouds. See, I'm targeting these light clouds up here. And it's missing some of this area right here, but I'm going to fix that, and I'll show you how we can fix that. But first, we need to get rid of this foreground. So let's use our mask calculator. Click on your mask calculator. You want to click on X to intersect, and now we'll click on the My Channels button. We're going to click on Sky. For an alternative method, I could have clicked on minus to subtract and then went to My Channels and clicked on foreground to subtract out the foreground. And now we're going to click equal to make the calculation. And now you can see I have a sky selection with just that zone mask for the clouds. And now we want to output that to a hue saturation adjustment layer because I want to get rid of that color cast, that blue color cast. So click this button. I'm on master. I'm going to take my saturation and just drag it to the left till I get rid of that color cast. And I think like right here, minus 67. See how that just takes that color cast out of there? There's still a little bit of a color cast right here, but I'll show you how I take care of that. And for that, I'll use my layer mask calculator. So we'll click this button right here. I'll click on Sky, and I want to load that as a selection. So I'm going to click this button right here to load it as a selection. And you can see by my selection indicators, I have a selection, but the mask calculator hides the marching ants so we don't have to see them, which is nice. And now we need to click on the layer mask to make it active. That's very important. Don't forget that. And now let's click on our white brush. Make sure your opacity is at 100%. If it's not, type your 0 key. And now simply with a nice large brush here, and I have a soft edge brush, we can just paint off that color cast. You see that? just like that. And it is gone. All right, so now let's shut this layer off. Here is the before, and here's the after, and the color cast is removed. And that's exciting to me. And now I still have a selection. You can see by the selection indicator, and it's very important here. Let's shut that selection off, because if we click on another, like an adjustment layer or something, that selection will get added to it, and we don't want that. So click that button to shut that selection off. And by the way, if you click that button again, you'll turn that selection back on. But let's shut it off by clicking it one more time. Now, the next thing I want to do is add an Orton effect, and not for an ethereal look, but just to give this a more photographic look, just soften it slightly. Remember in that one step where I brought all that detail out, that was the soft pop. I just want to soften up the details a tiny amount, not much. So here's what we'll do. If your actions aren't open, click your TK action button, and then click on the basic Orton effect right here. Click on Orton, and I'll take the Gaussian blur just the way it is. We can adjust it if we want to, but it's going to be good. I'm going to click OK. And that's a real strong effect. So if you want that strong effect, you may be looking for that. You got it, right? But what I like to do at this point on this group is click on this button right here. We'll go into the editing layer mask mode. And what I want to do is, remember, I like to use a lights one. If you watched my Orton Effect video, there's 3 different Orton effects inside of the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, which is really nice, and they're all great. So let's click on lights one. That targets only the light areas. But then all I need to do at this point is take the opacity, and I'm going to click right here and just take that opacity, and I'm going to drop it down a good bit, down to like right there, 25%. Now let me shut this eye off so we'll see the before. Here's before, and here is after. So as you can see, it just tones down the detail a little bit, but the detail is still there, because if I come back to that soft pop layer, if I shut this off, you can see that detail goes away. Plus I lose the pop of color and everything. But now we just have a really nice, more photographic looking image. And that's why I'm using the Orton effect. Now I'm done with layer mask mode, so I can click this X to get back to my multi-mask panel. 2 more steps and we are done. I'm going to go ahead and throw just a basic vignette on here. So I'm going to go to my TK actions. Again, if your actions aren't open, click your TK action button on either the combo or CX panel. Click on vignette. And I always take the Gaussian blur just the way it is. Click OK. It defaults at 30% opacity, which I will drag this up to 40%. And then I want to protect my darkest dark, so we can go to Edit Blend Diff. Don't you love Edit Blend Diff? Click on the Edit Blend Diff button. I'm going to click this button right here, No Darks 1. And now let me shut this layer off. I'm going to click the eye. Here's before and here's after. But my darkest darks are really protected. And you can see by that range right there. You see that right there? The black area is not getting the effect. Now this bar right here indicates to us our shadows, which are in this area right here, our midtones, which are in this area right here, and our highlights up in here. Now, if I click on No Darks 2, notice how this slides over, and this slider slides over, and this is No Darks 2, but you notice we have a much wider black area right here, meaning this whole area is not getting affected. Just wanted to take a little bit of time and point that out to you. I hope it'll be helpful. And let's click on No Darks 1, because that's what I want. And again, let me shut this layer off by clicking the eye. Here's before and here is after. One final step, and that is an overall exposure increase. Let me click the X on the Edit Blend Diff just to hide the panel. And then on the multi-mask panel, click this button to get an exposure adjustment layer. And what I want to do is just click on the exposure field, and it highlights, as you can see. Hold your shift key down and click your up arrow. This will give you 1/10 of a stop. Click it again while holding your shift key down. That's 2/10 of a stop. And one more time, that's 3/10 of a stop. Now, I want to protect my lightest areas here from getting this overall exposure increase. So to do that, I can click on Edit Blend Diff again, and I can click on No Lights 1, and you can see the effect here up in the sky in this cloud here. Let's try No Lights 2, and now more of the lights are dropping out from this exposure. Now what if I wanted No Lights 3? I don't have a No Lights 3, but here's a little tip for you. Tony shared this with me the other day, so thank you, Tony, for this tip. Hold your Command or Control key down and come to the top slider. It has to be the top slider. Holding Command or Control down, click and drag this to the left. These two sliders will drag in tandem. You see that? You want to drag this till you hit 101, and that's approximately a No Lights 3 right there. And if I click right here on either this slider or this slider, you can see that number, 101, 181. But that's the number for approximately a No Lights 3. So everything is getting the exposure adjustment, but we're dropping out like No Lights 3. So let me shut this layer off. Here is the before, and here is the after. So this is not getting lightened as much in the sky and the clouds and all these light areas. They're protected from getting overexposed. And now, as you can see, we have No Lights 1, No Lights 2. Now you know how to get a No Lights 3. And there we have it. That is our edit. And now, if we want to see an overall before and after, we can come to the Combo or CX panel and click this button right here. It's the before after button. We started out here. I'll click it again and we end up here. Well, I hope you learned some new things in this full edit today. And don't forget, please leave comments and questions. I'd love to hear from you. Well, there it is, everyone. Another TK Friday comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed this full edit today. And again, I hope you give this one a try. It's a great way of learning. You can download the image as well as the PDF notes. Hey, if you enjoyed today's tutorial, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon. Click all so you'll receive all notifications. And then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing.